Alright guys, this is like the 5th take of this, and we've gone through the whole thing a couple times, but hopefully this works this time, or at least works better. So I'm going to preface this with to say that this experiment has actually been rather inconsistent, partially because of how well my gauges are working. How well they're actually recording what's actually happening here. And also, I think because, I think that this leaks, it's not perfectly created, and I think that I'm not always getting the results that I want, and so I'm a little bit biased here. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. So, but that being said, I wanted to show this as an experiment rather than just telling and teaching you guys, because obviously we all are going to have our biases, right? And that's going to influence the experiment. And I wanted you guys to see how this was constructed. I want you to be very critical of the methods that I'm using here, right? Because, that's how we should always look at studies and experiments and things like that. And I think that's one of the things that is lost generally in society, is that people will see a headline, and oftentimes the news won't necessarily report on the methodology of how an experiment was run, and then it has these really, really wild claims that the authors are making that aren't really supported by the evidence that they had, and there might be biases or anything like that that's actually influencing the experiment. And sometimes, people are just poopy pants, and when their experiment doesn't go the way that they want to, they just fold up the testing center and say, okay, screw all my scientists, you didn't give me the results I wanted, ha ha ha, bye. I'm calling out Gary Taubes on that one, by the way. Anyways, we've talked about that, and this is not a nutrition video. So here's the thing, is that when we contract our muscles, the rate of contraction is going to create what we call the force velocity curve. As velocity goes up, the amount of force that's able to be produced goes down. And so if I'm doing a bench press or I'm doing a squat and I'm going really, really slow up and down, with whichever one I'm doing, I'm going to be able to move more weight the slower I generally go. Right? Versus if I go really, really fast, not only is it going to create an issue of safety where the amount that I'm controlling it is going to change, but also the amount of weight that I'm actually able to move is going to be lower. So what does this have to do with this weird-ass tube here and all these gauges and all this shit? Well, I was rolling with a guy who was in town who I had a blast with, by the way. He was wonderful. Real trash talker, actually. He would get out of my body scissor after he was begging, seriously begging for release, and then he would get out and he'd be like, "Ugh, your legs are so small and weak." He didn't sound like that, but yeah, basically that's the attitude that was there. Real shit talker. And so and this also goes towards, talks that I've had with Rib Crusher. I know I've mentioned him before, at least in my vlogs, if not here as well. And when we're talking about the body scissor and we're trying to talk about the factors that go into it, obviously that we're going to have a technique factor. The other things that we're going to have is a range of motion factor. So why am I doing this with pressure gauges and a tube rather than with a scale? Well, a scale is going to hit a much different range of motion. Scales are like this thick, right? So we're going to be going from here to here, and we're not going to be able to produce the same type of force that we might have in this range of motion. So this is to replicate that a little bit better. We are using this to better represent a body. Now, I got this at Pacific Industrial Supply, which we call PISS, and it is a discharge hose. And they do have larger ones, but I haven't actually been there a while. This one was just laying around my house, so this is the one I'm going to use. And so I've mostly sealed these off. I didn't put anything in there to really, really seal the tube. It's just folded over on itself, and that seems to be doing the trick fairly well as far as getting it to maintain pressure long enough. So when we are doing this experiment, we are going to take it up to about 8 pounds per square inch, and we are going to squeeze this, and we're going to see the differences based on the rate of muscle change. right? So what is the science behind this? Okay, part of it might have something to do with the Golgi tendon organ and the muscle spindles. Muscle spindles try to stop you from hyperextending a joint by judging the rate of change in a muscle and saying, oh shit, I need to tense this up to prevent it from going too fast, too far. So if I'm trying to squeeze, the antagonists are going to fire, and they're going to fight against that a little bit because they're like, oh shit, that's a rapid change. I need to stop that. And then the Golgi tendon organ is there to say, oh, you've been under tension. This is a lot of tension in the muscle. I need to down-regulate that. I think it has a little bit less to play in there than the muscle spindles do, but I do think that it does play a role. And then we also have when it comes to the force velocity turn curve, how that is generally going to be changed is part of it is also going to be, what is the weight that I'm moving? Right? So this is muscle recruitment, by the way, and motor units. So when I pick up a 5-pound weight, the reason why I don't punch myself in the face when I pick it up is because my nervous system is sending a signal to fewer of my muscle fibers than the muscle as a whole, right? So a light contraction isn't going to fire the same way as if I was lifting 45 pounds and doing a bicep curl with that. Not implying that I can curl 45 pounds, but you know. So when we need to move more weight, our nervous system will tell our muscle to contract more muscle fibers. And the reason for that is that when we actually go under a microscope and we go into a section of the muscle fiber, because muscle fibers are actually built up of these contractile units called sarcomeres that go this way and this way, right? And the more sarcomeres that you have, the more that you can actually pull with. And the thing is that a sarcomere, it has zigzag lines on the sides that are called Z-lines. And off of the points of those, you have your thin filaments that have these little cross bridges around them that stop the myosin heads from the thick filaments from binding to that. And then you have, being supported on these springy pieces called titin, you have a thick filament that has myosin heads. Now, the reason why my muscle's not contracting right now, it's just kind of sitting there, right, is because the nervous system hasn't basically filled the sarcoplasmic reticulum, which wraps around that sarcomere, with sodium. And what sodium does is it's actually going to displace calcium. That calcium is going to then flood into the sarcomere, and it's going to bind to that cross bridge that is basically blocking the myosin heads from contracting. And so once it gets it on there and it binds, it's going to change shape, because that's what happens when things bind to proteins. And that's going to open up the space for those myosin heads to grip. Then we have ATP that floats along and it hits the myosin head. And I'm using this shape intentionally, right? Because this is basically what it wants to be. It wants to be in this bicep curl kind of position. This is my myosin head, right? The ATP comes here and it attaches, and then ATP kinase will cause one of the phosphorus to disconnect from the ATP, causing the myosin head to go, right? So it's making it extend out, and then it comes up and it will grab onto that thin filament, and then it will pull as it goes back to its natural state. Then that ADP, right, the adenosine diphosphate, because it's down one phosphate, will kind of break off, and another ATP will come by, attach, and it'll go, oop, I let go, and it will pull again. We call those pulls twitches, right? So not all of your muscle fibers are necessarily always actually in sync. They are, as new calcium or new ATP comes by, it's going, and so you're going to hopefully get this to contract, right? Evenly. Anyways, so that is the basics of it. But the thing is that these myosin heads, this is what it does. It has no idea how much force it is producing. It has no way of regulating it, right? And so it always pulls with the same amount of force. And we can also feel that, like, if I'm lifting a 5-pound weight, my tricep is not responding by engaging to decelerate the amount of that curl really that much, right? It is doing an eccentric contraction to allow for the muscle, the bicep, to curl, but it's not necessarily like doing everything it can to decelerate it. A lot of that deceleration is happening because of how many muscle fibers are actually being involved in contraction. So what happens when we want to do a fast contraction? Our nervous system doesn't necessarily always know what kind of weight that we're trying to move, and so it's not going to immediately go, oh shit, I need 100% of my fibers to go right now. Right? And so the consequence of that is that the amount of force that we are able to produce is going to be significantly lower than if we ease into a contraction. Okay? And that, probably more so than the Golgi and the muscle spindle, is probably the biggest mechanism that determines how much power we can actually generate at a higher velocity. Okay? So, let's look at this in play. Hopefully my legs have not fallen asleep from sitting in this position. We're going to bring this up to reading on this guy to 8 psi. And 8's not an arbitrary number. When I did this yesterday, I did it at 5. There we go. We're right at 8 there. Okay, disconnect. And for redundancy, I'm going to use 2 gauges. And these are going to read differently, because that's what happens. Actually, they're both reading about 8 right now. So let's start off with our fast contraction. God. Knees. Don't get old, people. Okay, so I'm placing this right here. Okay, for consistency's sake, I'm going right above the kneecap here. I'm going to cross my ankles, and we're going to do a fast contraction now. So that was a fairly fast contraction. This one's not being as responsive, but the digital is. So fast. Okay, I think I saw about 8.6 here. We're going to reset this. It's saying it's at 6.6 now, so we've lost pressure. Okay, and that's fine. It's just going to give my leg a little bit of a break here. Let's back up. We're going to bring it back up to 8. Is this because I forced air out of there, or is it because these gauges suck? I don't know. Low range gauges are actually rather hard to find, believe it or not. Like this guy doesn't even read until you get above 5.1. So, okay, we're back at 8. Now we're going to do a slow contraction here, okay? So, we're here. Oh, God. Fuck. Sorry, F-bomb. We lost pressure there because I hit the button. Or so it says we did. Let's see what happens if I put back on. No, it's still saying 6.7. Ah, we did lose pressure. Okay. That's the thing about the analog one, is it doesn't go back down after it reaches peak force. So we are now at 8. Okay. Now, don't push buttons. Okay. 7.9, close enough. Okay, we're going to do a slow contraction now. Same placement here. Legs straight, ankles locked, and here we go. Okay, we got up to 9. So we basically went up by half a psi by going slower with the contraction than with a rapid contraction. And no, this is not just me like imposing my bias on you guys. This is me trying to do an earnest experiment here, okay? So, let's go back up. We're going to go back up to 8. We're going to do another rapid contraction. Good. This is actually more repeatable than last time I tried this. Okay. We're at about 7.7. So we're going to go fast contraction now. Okay. So this one's reading about 9 for that one. I think that I saw the digital one going up there as well. Okay. So we're going to take this back up to 8. For one last go on slow. Be more mindful, make sure I'm staying in frame too. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, 7.7, that's about where we started on the last one, so we're going to take that. Okay, nice and slow. We're dropping 7.5. This is leaking a lot faster than I thought it would. So we got all the way back up to that 9 again. Okay? Even though we had a lower PSI there to begin with. So, I hope this is helpful for you guys. I was expecting and hoping for much more dramatic results, right? That's what we always want, is we want to see really, really, really big changes. But give it a shot, guys. See if your jobbers are complaining more if you snap on slow versus fast. Put your results down in the comments, because I think that this is one of those things that we should be talking about as a community to find out what is actually going to be more or less effective. So I hope you had fun with this one, guys. I know it's a lot different than what we usually do, but, you know, why not? All right. Talk to you guys later.